The store manager locked eyes with her, voice cold as ice.
"You don't belong here. Get out now before I call security."
In that instant, every gaze turned toward a 36-year-old black woman, judged, diminished, condemned for nothing more than the color of her skin. No one in that room knew the bitter irony. The very woman they were humiliating held in her hands the future of the entire brand. The thick glass doors of Luxe Boutique eased open, spilling golden light from the chandeliers onto polished wood floors. The sharp click of high heels, the soft laughter of wealthy patrons, the mingling of expensive perfumes, all of it was designed to send one clear message. This place is not for everyone. This was a world reserved for those society deemed worthy. And then the door opened wider, and a woman stepped inside. Selina Carter, 36. A black woman, slender, carrying an uncanny stillness. Nothing about her hinted at wealth or luxury. Just a worn grey hoodie, plain black jeans, sneakers dusted with wear. No makeup, no dazzling jewelry. Only a small silver ring on her right hand, catching the light like a quiet heartbeat. The moment Selina crossed the threshold, the atmosphere faltered, like a song that suddenly skipped a note. Heads turned. A few frowned. Some barely glanced, then looked away, as though her presence wasn't worth more than 3 seconds of their attention. Then a voice cut through, sharp and cold, shattering the fragile illusion of refinement. "Stop! Put that dress down." The words struck Selina like an invisible slap. The speaker was Madeline Stone, the store manager. Tall, blonde hair in waves. Dark red lips curled into a smirk that was half contempt. She strode forward, high heels pounding like gavel strikes of authority. Selina was holding a silk emerald green dress, shimmering as it dangled from its hanger. At Madeline's command, her hand trembled, the fabric slipped, and the dress fell back onto the rack. The entire boutique froze. Laughter cut off. Perfume bottles stopped mid-spray. Even the jazz soundtrack suddenly felt unbearable in the silence. Madeline planted herself before Selina, icy eyes scanning her from head to toe, as though inspecting an intruder. "I'm sorry, but our store has standards. And looking at you," her finger jabbed at the grey hoodie, "you don't belong here." Whispers bloomed behind her. What is she even doing here? Is she homeless? Probably just here to snap some photos for social media. A few chuckled. Others raised phones, slyly recording, as if they had stumbled upon free entertainment. Selina said nothing. Her dark eyes stayed locked on Madeline's, calm, steady, unflinching. That very quietness seemed to unsettle her accuser more than any words could. Madeline's smirk widened. She raised her voice, letting the whole store hear. "Are you lost? Or just pretending for Instagram? This isn't a place to play dress-up?" At the register, a young employee lowered her head, hiding her discomfort. In another corner, a customer muttered, "She definitely can't pay. She's black after all." The words weren't shouted. They didn't have to be. They fell into Selina's ears like stones cast into a deep lake, but the surface of her gaze did not ripple. She stood there, silent as stone, but not broken stone. A pillar, quiet, steadfast, forcing those around her to wrestle with their unease. At that moment, discrimination was no longer subtle. It stood naked, harsh, undeniable. And everyone there, mockers, onlookers, employees, became part of the scene. Madeline stepped closer, finger stabbing the air near Selina's face. "Let me spell it out. This is a luxury store. We have standards, we have real customers, and you—" She paused, savoring each word. "Are making them feel unsafe." The words sliced like a blade of ice. Selina did not move. Only her eyes, deep still, quietly memorized each face, each insult, each second of this moment. A middle-aged man cleared his throat, leaned to his wife and muttered, "This is shameful. People like her shouldn't even step inside." Laughter rippled again, soft but sharp enough to tear the air. Someone near the door whispered, "If she doesn't leave, call the cops." And through it all, Selina Carter, the black woman in the grey hoodie, stood silent. Her gaze never left Madeline Stone, yet it carried no hate, only patience, as if she knew this was merely the beginning of a truth far larger than the room itself. The air inside Luxe Boutique felt frozen. The crystal chandeliers still shone, but their light no longer sparkled. It had turned sharp, cold, like a spotlight on a stage where one human being was reduced to entertainment. Selina Carter stood there, her hands relaxed at her sides. The old grey hoodie cloaked her slender frame, like a shabby armor concealing something no one could yet see. She did not move. She did not defend herself. She did not flee. Only her eyes, black, deep, and steady, were alive. Those eyes swept across every face in the room. The blonde woman clutching her Chanel bag, the older man with his silk tie, the young woman in yoga gear, the cashier trembling at the counter, and Robert, the elderly guard by the door. Her gaze did not accuse, it did not plead, it did not bow, it only remembered. The whispers grew sharper, louder. Maybe she's here to steal. Of course, that's what black people do. They can't afford a thing, just here to stir trouble. Each word landed like another brick, building an invisible wall around Selina. And yet, strangely, her silence made them even more uncomfortable. Madeline Stone folded her arms, her mocking smile widening, as though silence itself was proof of guilt. "Why don't you say something? If you're not the kind of person I think you are, then prove it. If not, kindly leave." Selina drew in a slow, deep breath. The sound wasn't loud, but in the tension of that space, it was impossible to miss. She did not answer. Her silence unsettled more than a few. A young woman with a scarf bit her lip and dropped her gaze. Robert, the old guard, frowned, sensing something deeply wrong in the way management was handling this. But he remained still. Authority was not his. Ethan Graves, the assistant manager, stepped forward, a cruel smile tugging at his lips. "I suppose you've got nothing to say. People like you. You stand there, don't you? You think silence makes you noble? It doesn't. In here it only makes you look more suspicious." Snickers rippled across the boutique. Someone lifted their phone higher, zooming in on Selina's face. But her face did not change. No twitch, no flinch, no sign of surrender. Look closely, and you'd see it. Her stillness was not weakness. It was the surface of a deep lake, concealing a strength no one had expected. Madeline's patience thinned. Her voice rose, sharper, harsher. "I'll ask one last time. Are you leaving, or should we call the police?" Selina lifted her gaze directly to hers. Not a flicker of emotion, only calm composure. That very calmness made Madeline falter, as though the gaze had cut through her. A middle-aged man broke the silence, half joking, half serious. "That's nerve. A black woman walking into a luxury boutique. No wonder she looks so out of place." His wife nodded, adding, "In places like this, standards are everything. And she doesn't measure up." Laughter erupted again, sharper, crueler this time. Selina still did not react, but her hands tightened briefly before loosening again. In her eyes lay a deep sorrow, but also a resolve as unshakable as stone. Robert, the guard, shook his head, taking half a step forward as if to speak, but stopped. He knew. To open his mouth would cost him his job. At that very moment, a little black girl about 10 years old walked past outside the glass, holding her mother's hand. She looked in, wide-eyed, and saw Selina standing alone, surrounded by scorn. The child's gaze held both fear and wonder. Selina met that gaze by chance, and in that instant she smiled, a faint, gentle smile, not for the one sneering inside, but for the little girl. A smile that whispered, "You don't have to bow. Never believe you don't belong anywhere because of your skin." The moment passed unnoticed by everyone inside, but it was enough to steady Selina further.
Madeline clapped twice, snapping at the staff.
"Come on, stop wasting time. We have real customers to serve, not strays." A few laughed, returning to their shopping. None realized that this very moment, every glance, every word, every gesture, was being preserved not just by the phone secretly recording, but in the memory of a woman who had endured far too much silence. Selina closed her eyes for a fleeting second, engraving it all. When she opened them again, her gaze no longer held only stillness. It carried something undeniable, a silent promise that the truth would not be buried. Her silence was no longer a prolonged weakness. It had become a weapon. The most dangerous kind, because it did not need to shout to echo. The luxurious boutique now felt like a stage. No one cared anymore for the gowns glittering on their racks, nor for the champagne swirling in crystal glasses. Every gaze had shifted to one figure, Selina Carter, the black woman in the grey hoodie. Madeline Stone stood before her, voice rising as though she were performing for the audience behind her. "I don't understand why you're still here. In this store, only those who truly have means deserve to touch our clothes. Do you think anyone will believe that someone like you could afford anything here?" Soft laughter trickled through the room. A few patrons nudged their companions, pointing toward the scene. One customer whispered loud enough for Selina to hear, "She's black. Just walking in here tarnishes the brand." A middle-aged woman in a red silk dress leaned over, her tone sharp with disdain. "I told you, letting them in only drags the store down to the level of a flea market." Her words unleashed more laughter, this time sharper, mocking, and yet not every eye was complicit. At the scarf counter, a young woman looked down, her fingers clutching fabric so tightly her knuckles whitened, as if she wanted to protest but could not. Selina remained still. Her eyes did not waver, nor did she move toward the exit. She let the insults fall like hail, cold, cutting, painful, but not a single word passed her lips. That very composure irritated Ethan Graves, the assistant manager, more than anything else. He stepped forward, tall and slick-haired, his tone dripping condescension as if lecturing someone beneath him. "Hey, do you hear me? This isn't a place for drifters. If you want pictures for Instagram, Forever 21 or Target might suit you better." Laughter burst again. A young customer whispered, phone raised to record. "This clip is going viral on TikTok." Selina stayed silent, but this time, slowly, she slipped her hand into her pocket. The room froze for a beat. Murmurs spread. "What's she pulling out? A phone? Or worse?" Madeline arched a brow, suspicion glinting. Ethan folded his arms, smirking. "Don't tell me you're planning to pay. I'd bet." But before he could finish, Selina drew out a small object. Light from the chandeliers caught it, gleaming across its surface. Smooth, jet black. A black card. Not the kind of credit card most people would ever see in their lifetime. A card of power, exclusivity, wealth. The room gasped. A few laughs died abruptly. Some brows lifted, throats swallowed nervously. But Madeline refused to let the shift linger. She erupted in laughter, her voice ringing with derision. "Oh my God, what a cheap trick. Do you think waving a black piece of plastic will make me believe you can afford a dress here? Amazon is full of fakes. You probably bought one to make yourself feel better." This time, laughter rose again, but it was uneasy, forced, faltering. Because everyone could see, Selina's hand did not shake. She held the card between two fingers, steady, serene, as if she needed to prove nothing to anyone. Ethan squinted at the card, a flicker of doubt crossing his face, before he recovered with a sneer.
Nice prop. Too bad there's no film set here. If you want, I could suggest a few cheap studios downtown.
Selina calmly slid the card back into her pocket and zipped it shut. Not a word of explanation, not a word of defense. She lifted her gaze, sweeping the room, locking eyes with each face staring at her. And then, for the first time, her voice rose. Not loud, not hurried, just 5 words, soft as breath, yet enough to silence the entire room. I want to see how. A pause thick as stone. Madeline frowned, snapping. How what? Selina tilted her head, her gaze unshaken, her voice deliberate. How you treat people. The words fell like an unseen blade. No more laughter, no more whispers. Only the heavy shame of exposure pressed on everyone present. Robert, the old guard, furrowed his brow, eyes fixed on Selina. In that gaze was recognition. She was not homeless. She was not someone to be humiliated. She knew exactly what she was doing. Madeline, desperate to break the silence, barked sharply. Enough, Derek! She turned to Robert, signaling with authority. Get her out, right now! The room rippled again. Phones lifted higher, recording. Some patrons exchanged glances, whispering nervously. God, this is getting intense. She's challenging the whole store. Selina did not move. She stood in silence, eyes steady, hands at her sides. And it was that silence, that refusal to bend, that made the air inside Lux suffocating, heavy enough to crush. The room sank into silence after the 5 simple words Selina released. I want to see how. No shouting, no explanation, just one sentence, enough to snap the taut air like a string stretched to its breaking point. People glanced at each other. Some raised brows in confusion. Others pressed their lips together uneasily. Her words had risen like a sudden mirror in the middle of the room, reflecting every face present. And in that reflection, no one felt comfortable with what they saw. Madeline Stone, the store manager, tightened her arms across her chest, forcing a scoff to mask the tremor flickering in her eyes. How do we treat people? Then you've seen it. This is a luxury boutique. We have standards and you don't meet them. Her voice rang loud, straining to reclaim control of the space. But the initial certainty had already frayed. Ethan Graves cut in, voice thick with mockery. How ridiculous. What? She thinks she's some moral critic. Here, she's nobody, just an unwelcome guest. Don't think your silence makes us feel guilty. He burst out laughing, but this time the sound rang hollow, shrill in the void. No one else joined him. Robert Hayes, the elderly guard, kept his eyes fixed on Selina, his brow furrowed, his expression carrying both doubt and respect. Something in the way she stood, in the sharp precision of her few words, told him she was no ordinary guest. At the counter, Chloe, the young cashier with curly hair tied back, bit her lip, her hands trembling as she folded fabric. She knew Madeline would never tolerate dissent, but inside her chest injustice pounded with every heartbeat. Selina inhaled slowly, deliberately. Then she lifted her head, locking eyes with Madeline. Her gaze no longer held only stillness. It blazed with a quiet force, saying without words that every moment here, every insult, every act had been indelibly recorded. Her voice dropped low, steady, clear. I didn't come to buy. I came to see how you treat someone you think is unworthy. The words sliced the air like a sharp blade, splitting the atmosphere in two. A few customers instinctively stepped back. A man whispered to his wife, "Well, what is she saying? It's like she's testing them." His wife frowned but said nothing. Madeline's face flushed red, her voice pitched high, shrill. Enough! Robert, I told you, remove her. She's not a customer. She's here to cause trouble. Are we going to let such a farce sully this place?
Robert moved forward slowly, his footsteps heavy. His eyes lingered on Selina once more, and just then, Selina leaned slightly, whispering so softly only he could hear.
You don't have to do this. Robert froze. For an instant, shock flickered across his face before he masked it with professional composure.
Ethan noticed and surged forward, eager to display authority in Robert's place.
Fine, if he won't, I will.
He strode quickly, hand shooting out to seize Selina's arm, gripping it as if to drag her out. A sharp gasp rose from the crowd. A young woman clapped her hand over her mouth, whispering,
"He touched her. Oh my God."
Another customer lifted a phone, camera flashing red to record. Soon, not one but several phones were pointed their way, capturing every second. Selina didn't pull away. She didn't resist. She looked down at the hand gripping her, then raised her eyes, cold as ice, straight into Ethan's. Her voice rang out, calm, measured.
"You should let go!"
The room went deathly quiet. Even the jazz music seemed to fade into the distance. Ethan sneered, but the smile quivered. Something in her gaze rattled his certainty. And then Robert's heavy hand landed firmly on his shoulder. His voice was low, solid as stone.
"That's enough."
Ethan jerked his head around.
"What did you say?"
Robert's tone hardened, each word deliberate.
"She'll leave on her own. No one lays a hand on her, not under my watch."
A ripple of murmurs spread, like a wave through the boutique. People exchanged uneasy glances, confusion clouding their eyes. Selina calmly pried Ethan's hand from her arm and stepped back a pace. Not hurried, not shaken. She stood tall, scanning the room before giving a slight nod. "I will go, but remember, I've seen enough." Her words sent a tremor through Madeline, though she tried to smother it with a scoffing laugh.
"Go on, then. No one will even remember you an hour from now."
Selina didn't reply. She turned, strolling toward the glass doors. Each footstep echoed like a drumbeat in the suffocating silence. When her hand touched the door handle, several phones were still trained on her, recording every movement. Some patrons felt their hearts race because it no longer felt like watching someone expelled, but like witnessing an invisible judgment looming over the store itself. Selina pushed the door open. Cold air rushed in, carrying the clamor of the city. She stepped out, back straight, never turning back. But just then, a young voice pierced the silence behind her.
"She didn't do anything wrong."
The room jolted. Chloe, the young cashier, had blurted it out. As Madeline spun, fury blazing in her eyes, Chloe dropped her gaze, hands trembling. But her words had already been heard by many. Selina paused for a heartbeat. Then, without turning, she walked on, melting into the cold light of the street. The door shut behind her, leaving a hollow silence in the boutique. No one yet knew that this moment, Selina leaving in silence, was already being replayed by thousands across social media, and it would shake the system to its core. When the boutique door closed behind Selina, the noise of the city poured in. The roar of traffic, the calls of street vendors, the hurried footsteps on the sidewalk, all collided at once, a symphony opposite to the suffocating silence she had just left inside. Selina stood still for a moment on the threshold. The chill of the afternoon wind brushed against her cheeks, raising goosebumps on her brown skin. But her gaze did not waver. She looked straight ahead, as though she had just stepped out of a courtroom where the verdict had yet to be read. Inside the boutique, Madeline Stone tilted her chin upward and inhaled deeply, like someone savoring victory. Her voice rang out, loud enough for the entire store to hear. "There, I told you. This is not the place for someone like her. Now everyone can continue shopping without being disturbed." A few uneasy chuckles followed, but no one dared to laugh loudly.
None of them realized that just outside, only a few feet beyond the glass, several phones were still recording, tracking Selina's every step. Selina strolled along the sidewalk, then stopped in front of the display window. Inside, the emerald green gown stood majestic on its mannequin, regal and unmoving. The spotlight caught every crystal sewn into the fabric, making them shimmer defiantly. Selina saw herself reflected in that pane of glass. A figure in a grey hoodie, dusty sneakers, nothing glamorous. Her reflection stood side by side with the gown inside, a brutal juxtaposition. She pulled out her phone, raised it, and clicked. One photo, reality outside and illusion inside, both frozen together. Her fingers brushed her hoodie pocket. She drew out a small, worn notebook and flipped to the last page, where neat lines of handwriting appeared. Staff greeting within 15 seconds. Assistance when approaching product. Reaction when asking price. A sensitivity to appearance or skin color. Protective attitude, see. Only one box was marked, none. Selina pressed her lips together, staring at the page, then closed the notebook gently. A gust of wind whipped loose strands of hair from her bun. Behind the glass, Madeline and Ethan were still laughing, but from a corner, Chloe, the young sales clerk, looked out. Her eyes met Selina's through the glass. For a fleeting second, that gaze became an invisible thread linking two people, one humiliated, the other silently witnessing, but too afraid to speak. Selina gave a slight nod. Chloe dropped her head quickly, as if caught in a guilty act. On social media, only minutes after Selina left, the first video surfaced. Title: Black woman expelled from luxury boutique for wearing a hoodie. The footage shook, but the sound was unmistakable. Madeline's voice rang out. That hoodie and that skin color don't belong here. Murmurs, chuckles. Then the image of Ethan touching Selina's arm, her face frozen, her calm voice. You should let go. The clip ended with Selina walking out, back straight, never looking back. Within an hour, the video had been shared tens of thousands of times. Comments flooded in. Seriously? It's 2025 and this is still happening? Her eyes, that hurt to watch. I've been to that store. The staff are openly discriminatory. Some well-known accounts reposted it. One wrote, This is not about a dress. This is about dignity. Hoss. Out on the street, Selina sat on a stone bench, phone in hand. The screen lit up, 37 messages, 12 missed calls, and the video streaming live with hundreds of thousands of views. She didn't press play. Instead, she opened her photo gallery. There it was, the picture she had just taken. The black woman in a hoodie reflected beside the extravagant gown. No caption needed. The image spoke for itself. A cold breeze swept through, carrying the strains of a violin played by a street musician nearby. The aching melody mingled with the slowed footsteps of passers-by. Some recognized Selina from the clip. They pointed, whispered. She did not react. In her mind, only one sentence echoed, the words she had spoken inside that boutique. I want to see how you treat people. Now, those words were no longer aimed at Madeline or Ethan alone. They had reached out, into the screens of thousands, then millions, forcing each person to ask themselves, how would you treat someone like Selina if she walked into your store? Inside the boutique, Madeline tried to keep smiling, but the corners of her mouth trembled as her phone buzzed relentlessly. Messages, notifications, and an unfamiliar number calling. She didn't dare pick up. Ethan stared at his screen, his face drained of color. Behind the counter, Chloe clutched a cloth so tightly her palms grew damp with sweat. She knew what had just happened could never be buried. Not anymore. Not in an age where one video could set truth ablaze with a single tap. Selina rose.
In front of her stood a little black girl, about 10, pausing with her mother to look at her intently. The child's wide, bright eyes glistened, not with pity, but with admiration. Selina bent down slightly, smiling gently, though her smile carried strength. "You don't have to change to be accepted. You already belong the moment you walk in." The girl nodded hard, gripping her mother's hand tighter. Selina turned and walked on. Her back remained straight. In the rush of the crowd, she was no longer the humiliated woman inside a store. She was living proof of a truth. Dignity cannot be stripped away by scornful eyes or venomous words. And it was that very calmness that would force the world to listen. Selina Carter stood before the transparent glass doors of Luxe Boutique. That pane of glass was like a wall dividing two worlds. On one side, dazzling lights, champagne shimmering in crystal flutes, laughter dripping with arrogance. On the other, noisy streets, the bite of cold wind sweeping through, and a black woman in a worn-out hoodie. Reflected in the glass, Selina's image appeared sharp. The stream of passers-by swallowed her figure, her grey sweatshirt standing in stark contrast to the emerald gown inside. A dress displayed on a faceless mannequin, without history, without soul. Selina lifted her hand, lightly touching the glass, as though trying to feel the fabric of that dress. But wherever she touched, she only met her reflection, a person deemed as someone who did not belong. She raised her phone, turned on the camera, and slowly recorded the entire scene. From the glaring lights, the staff gathered in laughter, to the dress advertised as the symbol of luxury. Then Selina shifted the lens toward her reflection in the glass, capturing the image of an ordinary woman staring at an illusion. Click. A photograph preserved, truth and illusion coexisting side by side. Lowering her phone, her fingers brushed against a small notebook tucked in her pocket. She pulled it out and opened it to the last page. Staff greeting within 15 seconds. Assistance when the customer touched the product. Attitude when customer asked for price. Sensitivity regarding appearance, skin color. Security's conduct. Only one small box was checked. Observation. Discrimination evident. Selina gazed at the words for a long while, then exhaled softly. The notebook closed, but her eyes remained open, as if absorbing everything into memory. Inside, through the glass, Madeline and Ethan continued their sneering laughter. But not everyone was laughing. Chloe, the young sales associate, turned her head slightly, quietly looking towards Selina. In that fleeting moment, their eyes met. Chloe lowered her gaze, ashamed of her silence. But Selina gave a small nod, ever so slight, as if to send a message. "I see you, and I understand." Harton. Meanwhile, on social media, the first video had surpassed 200,000 views. Comments poured in. Unbelievable. She was just standing there, yet they treated her like a criminal. This is still how black people are treated in high-end stores. When will it change? I don't know her, but looking at her eyes, I see strength. Several large accounts reposted the clip. Someone added the caption, "Silence can be a scream. Listen." Selina strolled along the sidewalk, blending into the crowd. Yet no matter how much she tried to merge, she still stood out. Not because of her clothes, but because of the aura of stillness around her, as though the world roared in chaos, and she alone carried a quiet space within. A little black girl ran past, tugging her mother's hand, then suddenly stopped, staring at Selina. Her wide eyes glimmered with admiration. Selina bent down, offered the gentlest smile and whispered, "You don't need to try to be accepted. You already belong." The mother gave Selina a quiet nod before leading her daughter away. A small moment, but enough for Selina to feel she was not alone. Back inside the boutique, Unseen by anyone there, an emergency virtual meeting had already been convened at Johnson Holdings, the conglomerate behind the Lux brand. On the screen, Selena's video replayed. The head of HR frowned, and the risk director drummed his fingers sharply on the table. Then CEO Jonathan Lin spoke in a low, steady voice. "This is not a minor incident. This is a crack revealing a rotted foundation of culture." Someone hesitated. "Could it be that she's someone more important? I heard some people say her eyes didn't look ordinary." Jonathan didn't answer. He stared straight at the screen, at the still frame of Selena standing silent, her gaze piercing through the lens. Then he concluded, "We don't need to guess. Let the truth reveal itself." On the sidewalk, Selena stopped, unlocked her phone. Notifications cascaded across the screen. "The video featuring you is now trending number 3 nationwide." She didn't read the comments. Instead, she reopened the photo she had taken, the reflection of herself and the dress behind the glass. She zoomed in, staring at it for a long while. On one side, the soulless luxury gown. On the other hand, her face. Tired, resolute, painfully honest. Selena whispered, as if speaking only to herself, "This is the truth." Then she saved the photo and set it as her phone's wallpaper. In the fading light of the afternoon, Selena walked on. Her figure melted into the crowd, yet her presence left behind a quiet trace of light. She did not need to shout. The world would find its voice in that silence. As the stream of people outside on the street continued to flow, the video of Selena being thrown out rose to the top of the trending charts. Meanwhile, on the highest floor of Johnson Holdings, the parent company of Lux Boutique, a completely different atmosphere prevailed. The boardroom was vast, its glass walls overlooking the entire city. A long walnut table, high-backed black leather chairs. Usually this was the place for cold discussions about revenue, strategies, and the luxury market. But today, no one mentioned numbers. Every eye was fixed on the massive screen mounted on the wall. There, the video had been replayed repeatedly. Selena holding the emerald dress, Madeline barking, "That dress and that skin don't belong here!" The contemptuous laughter, the whispers, and then the moment Ethan held her hand, followed by that icy command. "You should let go." Each time the clip reached that point, the room fell into a suffocating silence. Claire Monroe, head of human resources, slammed her pen down on the table. "We are facing a media storm. This video has been viewed over 500,000 times in under 2 hours. The hashtags #LuxDiscrimination and She Belongs are exploding. If we don't act immediately, the entire brand will nosedive." The chief financial officer sighed, eyes glued to the screen. "What worries me more is the detail about the black card. I zoomed in. That wasn't counterfeit. No logo, no name, but the distinctive design. That's the kind of card only issued to individuals with immense wealth and influence." A wave of murmurs rippled through the room. The chief legal officer drummed his fingers slowly on the table. "Are you saying the woman in this video could be one of our most important clients, and we failed to recognize her?" The question landed heavily. Claire frowned, scrolling quickly through her tablet. According to recent reports, the Lexington Avenue store has received dozens of discrimination complaints. But Madeline Stone was kept on because of her ties with several members of the old board. We chose to look the other way. And now the consequences are exposed. No one replied. They all knew it was true. The boardroom doors swung open. A tall man in a navy suit strode in with decisive steps. Jonathan Lin, the CEO of Johnson Holdings. He didn't speak at once. He stood in front of the screen, watching the clip one more time. When it ended, Jonathan finally turned back. His voice was low, clear. "This is not a minor incident. This is a wake-up call. Not just for one store, for the entire system. They didn't see a customer. They only saw skin color and clothing.
And that is destroying everything we claim to stand for. One director hesitated. But don't you notice? This woman, her eyes, the way she carries herself, it doesn't feel ordinary. Something about her is familiar. Jonathan paused, his gaze deepening. He remembered clearly the moment Selina looked straight into the camera. That wasn't the look of the powerless. That was the look of someone who knew she held the truth. Claire leaned forward, lowering her voice. There are rumors that she has ties to Lux's original founding council. I haven't confirmed it, but some sealed internal records from years ago include the name Selina Carter. The room erupted with noise. A sales director shook his head, trying to steady himself. Impossible. If that's true, then we just threw out the very founder of her store. Jonathan didn't answer. He only looked out through the glass wall, the city lights glittering beneath him. In his eyes, there was both concern and resolve. Prepare a full audit. Every report from Lexington Avenue, every receipt, every complaint, every security camera. No more cover-ups. I want the truth. His voice was firm, leaving no room for hesitation. Claire asked softly, should we issue a press release? Jonathan shook his head. Not yet. Let the public keep watching, keep questioning. Sometimes silence is the way for truth to echo further. When the time comes, we will speak, but not now. On the floor below, in the company's PR office, young staffers were glued to their screens. The video kept playing, the comments streaming endlessly. Her eyes, they're different, like she knows exactly who she is. Did anyone notice the tattoo on her wrist? A J inside a circle. One junior employee's mouth fell open as he dug through old images online. He found a photo taken at a technology award ceremony years ago. A woman in a black suit, hair in a high bun, a glimpse of that same tattoo on her wrist. The caption under the image, Selina Carter, pioneering investor in ethical technology. He swallowed hard, turning to his colleague. Oh my God, that's her. The woman in the video, Selina Carter. Not just an ordinary customer, not just an investor. She was once a builder of this very system. The message raced through the office, then up to the executive floor. Jonathan, standing by the window when the report reached him, nodded, not surprised. He had suspected. Get ready. This truth will not just shake a store, it will shake the entire brand. Outside, Selina kept walking down the sidewalk, her phone buzzing relentlessly in her pocket. But she didn't rush to answer. Each step grew slower, steadier, as though she was setting the rhythm of the storm she had just unleashed. Silence once again had become her greatest strength. 2 days later. The New York sky was a dull grey, tiny raindrops falling, scattering streetlights into 1,000 fractured sparks. On Lexington Avenue, in front of Lux Boutique, a crowd had gathered. They weren't there to shop. They were there to witness. In many hands were placards. Respect all customers. End discrimination. Reporters pushed forward, camera flashes bursting non-stop, phones held high, live streams rolling. People wanted to see how this luxury company would respond to the scandal shaking social media. Inside the boutique, the air was tight, suffocating. Staff lined up behind the counters, faces anxious. Madeline, the store manager, stepped forward. Her lipstick had faded, her eyes bruised from sleepless nights, yet her voice still hissed with arrogance. Don't let the mob outside make you tremble. This is still Lux. We don't bow to circus tricks. But before her words had fully landed, the glass doors slid open, and Selina walked in. No longer in the emerald gown of that day. Today, she wore a minimalist black suit, her hair tied in a high bun, her face lightly made up. A quiet, sharp elegance radiated from her. Instantly, every gaze locked onto her. Phones shot up, recording every second. Madeline squinted, her tone snapping. You dare come back here? This is not a place for stunts. Security, get her out! 2 security guards exchanged glances, but their feet hesitated, because they too had seen the video.
They knew the whole world was watching. Selina didn't lash back. She walked, unhurried, to the display stand where the emerald gown still rested on the mannequin. Placing her hand gently on the silk, she whispered loud enough for all to hear, "How fascinating. The value of a piece lies not in its fabric, but in the story it carries. Yet here, you only saw skin color, not the person." The sound echoed in the hushed boutique. A young employee standing in the corner swallowed hard. It was Maria, the one who had witnessed everything that day. Tears welled in her eyes. At last she found her courage. I saw it all. That day she only chose a dress. It was manager Madeline who humiliated her. That wasn't a misunderstanding. It was discrimination. The room exploded. Cameras immediately swung toward Maria. Madeline shrieked, "Shut up! You'll be fired this instant!" But this time no one stood with her. Selina turned, her eyes meeting Maria's, giving a soft nod of gratitude. Then she pulled a slim folder from her bag and laid it on the counter. "You want to know who I am? Fine. These are equity papers. I am one of Lux's founding shareholders 12 years ago. My name is Selina Carter, and that day I didn't return to buy a gown. I returned to see if the brand I helped build still remembered to respect humanity." The entire store froze. Some employees gaped, whispering, "Founding shareholder? Impossible." Maria covered her mouth, tears spilling. Madeline went pale, her legs trembling. All her power, all her barked orders dissolved into smoke. Selina stepped closer, her voice low yet resounding. "What happened here didn't just insult me. It revealed that this place has lost its soul. When a customer is met with contempt, when skin color becomes the reason for humiliation, there is no fashion, no class, only emptiness." Her words cut like a scalpel. Outside, the crowd's chant pierced the glass. "Justice! Justice!" Madeline collapsed into a chair, sweat beading on her forehead. At that moment, the doors opened again. Jonathan Lynn, CEO of Johnson Holdings, entered with a team of directors and lawyers. His presence sent a shock through the store. He stopped before Selina, bowed his head slightly. "Mrs. Carter, just as I suspected. Welcome back." Employees gasped. Madeline stammered, What? She's really—" Jonathan didn't glance at her. He continued, "We've verified. All records confirm Mrs. Carter was one of the first to invest and shape Lux's philosophy. But that philosophy has been twisted by those who scorn human dignity." Turning to the entire staff, his tone sharpened. "From today, Madeline Stone is suspended and will face disciplinary investigation. Anyone complicit in discriminatory acts will be held accountable. This isn't just a decision for one store, it is for the entire chain. We will relaunch Lux with one core principle: dignity first." Applause erupted. Cameras captured every frame. Selina remained silent, but her eyes glowed with quiet relief. At last, truth had spoken for her. She bent down, lifted the emerald gown, and carefully set it back on the mannequin. "What I needed was never a dress. What I needed was an awakening." The room froze in awe. One sentence was enough to etch that moment into legend. The news spread like wildfire. Within hours, every television channel, online newspaper, and fashion blog carried the video of Selina Carter's confrontation at the Lux store. The hashtag #dignity first flooded Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. The clip of Selina placing the shareholder folder on the counter, her calm but cutting words. "When skin color becomes the reason for humiliation, there is no longer class, only emptiness," was shared millions of times overnight. Lux stock wavered. Investors flooded the phone lines, demanding answers. The board of directors convened an emergency meeting at the Glass Tower headquarters in Manhattan. Inside the boardroom, the atmosphere was heavy.
Some executives' faces flushed red with anger, and others bowed their heads in shame. Jonathan Lynn stood up, holding a thick report. We have forgotten the most important thing. Fashion is not just clothing. It is voice. It is dignity. And we have just been exposed by a founding shareholder for the painful truth. We betrayed our core values. A director stammered. But this incident only happened at one store. We can handle it internally. There's no need to escalate. Jonathan's gaze sharpened, his tone cold. No, this is not just one store. This is the entire culture of the system. If a manager can publicly humiliate a customer, it means rot has seeped from top to bottom. If we do not reform, Lux will collapse. His words froze the room into silence. The next day, an official press release was issued. Madeline Stone was fired and would face a civil lawsuit for racial discrimination. Senior managers involved were suspended. A Dignity First program was launched globally, mandatory training on fairness and respect for all employees. And most importantly, Selina Carter was invited back onto the Strategic Advisory Council to lead the brand reform project. The news shook the world. In the following weeks, the press continually published images of Selina walking into Lux headquarters alongside experts, beginning meetings on brand reconstruction. She was no longer seen merely as a victim of discrimination. She had turned that very humiliation into the driving force to transform an empire. Maria, the young employee who had bravely spoken out, also received surprising news. She was promoted to training manager, becoming the leader of courses on fairness and dignity for new employees. One afternoon, at the launch of the new global campaign, Jonathan Lynn stood on stage before thousands of guests and millions watching online. We were wrong. But thanks to those who dared to confront, we now have the chance to make it right. And from today, Lux will no longer speak only of superficial luxury. We will speak of the luxury of character. Thunderous applause erupted. Selina stood quietly behind the stage, not laughing aloud, but a soft smile curled at her lips. She knew the battle was far from over. But at least today, a door had opened. Outside the hall, hundreds of people gathered, holding banners. We stand with Selina. Many women of color wept, whispering, She did what we once only dreamed of. She made them listen. In that moment, Selina realized. Her story no longer belonged to herself alone. It had become a flame, igniting hope for millions who had endured in silence. One autumn evening, Manhattan's golden lights stretched across Fifth Avenue. Selina Carter strolled through the glass entrance of the newly redesigned Lux store. Inside, gone were the flashy billboards of lavish glamour. In their place hung simple portraits, textile workers, artisans, people once in the shadows, but now honored as the heartbeat of the brand. In the corner, Maria approached, her youthful smile carrying a newfound maturity. Selina, I never thought I'd be here as a training manager. It's all thanks to you. Selina placed a hand on her shoulder, her voice warm. No, it's thanks to you, choosing truth over silence. You showed that courage doesn't require power, only a heart that knows right from wrong. They stood in silence for a moment. Soft music played. A group of customers entered. Among them, a black girl about 12 years old, wearing a simple dress, her eyes shining as she looked around. Her mother whispered, Do you see, my child? One day, you too can walk in here without anyone looking at you with disdain. The words sent a shiver through Selina. She understood that what she was doing was not only to restore a brand, but to pave the way for the next generation. That evening, at the official grand opening, Jonathan Lynn invited Selina to speak. Hundreds of cameras turned toward her. The air was so still, as if the whole world waited for one word. Selina stood tall, her eyes calm yet holding a journey of tears and pride. She did not use flowery language, only spoke slowly, each word like a hammer striking the heart. I was once treated as a stranger in the very space I helped build, but today I want to say this. True luxury is not found in the label on clothes, but in how we look at each other, with respect, with dignity. If a brand can change, so can this society. But change begins only when we stop bowing before injustice. Thousands rose to their feet, applause unending. Many eyes glistened with tears. Cameras carried her words live to millions worldwide. Selina quietly stepped down from the stage. For a moment, she heard the trembling yet emotional voice of an older woman behind the curtains. "Thank you, child. You spoke for all of us." Selina nodded gently, needing no further words. In that silence, she knew the fight for justice would never end, but at least today, she had passed on a flame. The story closed with words on the screen. Respect is not given by wealth or power. It is proven by how we treat the most overlooked.